From the land of lakes, this is 10,000 Takes, brought to you by Minnesota Score Radio. Wally and Eric back for yet another month as we slice and dice the always busy, always topical, super saturated Minnesota sports scene. Wally, we are basically heading toward mid-February, a lot going on. Obviously, the Super Bowl, we'll get into that later in the show, but in a few days, you'll have pitchers and catchers reporting in Florida and Arizona for spring training. But here in the Twin Cities, I'd say story 1A has to be the Minnesota Timberwolves because they're basically at the top of the heap in the Western Conference, where they've been most of the season, but it's a battle.
Yeah. On top, 2 All-Stars this year. And on top of that, you got the coaching staff for the first time since 2004, the last time the Timberwolves were a relevant threat in the Western Conference to do some postseason damage. And, they certainly have the tools to do it again this year, to make some kind of a postseason run. But as you know, the top of that Western Conference is pretty jam-packed. There are 4 teams that are within a game or 2 of each other, including the defending NBA champion Denver Nuggets. So it's not going to be an easy ride, but I think that the Wolves have the weapons. Can they stay off of the referees, which tends to be a problem for a couple of players, namely the 2 guys that are going to the All-Star game? Can they stay away from hero ball? And that seems to be a problem that Chris Finch keeps pointing out, head coach Chris Finch keeps pointing out from week to week. We hear about it.
Well, there's still some growing pains. I think the team has matured, but not to where they need to be if you're going to make a deep playoff run. And they can't have these hiccup losses to Charlotte at home. Now, Orlando is a playoff team right now in the East, so I won't call that a bad loss, but you still should find a way to beat the Magic at home. So they have to avoid these trap games. They seem to rise to the occasion when they play in Oklahoma City or Boston here. I mean, that game they won earlier in the year, and then they barely lost to Boston out east. They're going to see Milwaukee soon. In fact, they'll see the Bucks twice. But I think there's a lot of reason for optimism. But you brought up the Denver Nuggets. They're the reigning champs. You have to give them all the love that you can possibly think of here in the month of love. February, right? Valentine's Day coming up. And then you got to give the LA Clippers some love. I mean, they've come really from the depth of despair early in the year. They're very relevant. And you've got Oklahoma City. They're a lot like Minnesota. They're young, they're hungry, they're brash, they're bold, they're ready to make that next step. And there's some other teams in the West.
Yeah.
Phoenix.
Yeah, there are. Well, and don't count the Lakers out completely. Record-wise, they're only a so-so team right now. But, with LeBron and Anthony Davis, I'm sure they'll be in the playoffs.
They snapped the Knicks' long winning streak the other night in New York City, and they won in Boston.
Anything they did, yeah. They led that one basically from opening tip to final buzzer. They really dominated the Celtics, which was odd. I turned that one on and was wow, this is unusual. But again, you have LeBron and you have Anthony Davis. Anything's possible. Although those 2 guys did not play against the Celtics, which brings me back to my favorite topic in the NBA these days. Load management, and as you call it, a load of fertilizer. I mean, the NBA has got to figure this thing out. I know we keep talking about this every week, but it keeps happening. You can't have your superstars sitting out once every 4 or 5 games. It just doesn't play well. It doesn't play well with the fans. I am sure that I think the game was on ABC, the one that I watched, the Lakers and the Celtics. They couldn't have been happy with that. ABC/ESPN was probably saying, wait a minute. We picked this game because LeBron James is on the Lakers.
Well, that's where the blowback has to start coming from the networks, right? ABC has to say, wait a minute. You want all this money from us? Millions and billions of dollars? Then
no doubt.
You got to have your showcase guys playing. And then the fans also have to make a statement. And it's easy to tell the fans to boycott. I mean, that's a large group to get to galvanize and have a single soul, purpose of doing something. But the fans need to really become more angry. Letters, texts, whatever you got to do, start staying away from games.
Social media.
Because if you don't move the needle that way, the NBA will continue they'll give it lip service. But in reality, what do they care as long as they're cashing a big check?
Yeah, and right now they continue to cash it despite the fact that their star players don't play every day. And It's lousy for the fans, whether it's on television or whether it's in person. It just is not good for the NBA. It's a bad look, bad optics.
And whatever happened to the alpha male athlete who never wanted to take a night off, who always wanted to be there? We've talked about it in the past. Michael Jordan, his MO was, look, when I go into some cities, especially in the Western Conference, where the Bulls would make one trip each season, I know they're coming to see me. I'm not going to take a night off. I've got to give them my best shot. It would be like going to see Beyonce, and then she says, I'm not coming out tonight. I have a sore throat. But here's the warm-up band. Yeah,
exactly.
I mean, or Taylor Swift or whoever, it just wouldn't play. Yeah. You'd have a riot. If that thing happened at a concert,
oh, people would go nuts.
Yeah. And they would demand refunds.
All right, so I will give the Timberwolves credit in this department. I do not believe I have seen either. Well, I don't think Anthony Edwards has done it. I mean, I know he was hurt because he had the leg injury a little bit earlier in the season, but he was legitimately hurt. He even played hurt one night. You could tell he was playing hurt. And I don't think Karl Anthony Towns has done that this year either. I don't think that they've taken load management days, those two guys.
No, I don't think it's really in their MO.
No.
The other night against Orlando, I mean, I think it was knee on knee, and Ant hobbled off the floor, went up the tunnel in the second quarter. Right. A lot of us sitting there in the press box thought, this season could take a dramatic turn. But then you blinked and he was back on the floor in the second half. So, yeah, he's wired to go. So's Cat. I think the Wolves' young energy, that's one good thing about this team. They want to put on a show every night. What they need to do is make sure that, as you said, back off the refs. Chris Finch made the point the other night. Look, Ant's a slasher. He goes into the paint. He's going to get banged down there. It's a physical place to go. It's going to happen. You're not going to get every call. You have to let that roll off your back. And the sooner he does that, the better, because in the Magic game, he got teed up. And that was a 2-point game that Orlando won.
He got teed up against the Rockets, and they ended up winning it by 20-something. But you just got to contain that temper. Anyway, all right. We're going to take a break. We'll talk Gopher basketball a little bit later on, but coming up next, we are going to talk Super Bowl with one of our super guests.
Yeah, Warren Moon.
Yes, Hall of Famer.
Hall of Fame quarterback, going to join us here on 10K Takes. Your T-Wolves ticket.
In Lakeville, Minnesota, dozens of meeting venues are ready to host your next corporate event, banquet, and holiday party. Lakeville has unique conference facilities, a variety of hotels, an abundance of team-building options, and dining that are sure to impress. For suggestions that suit your needs, please call the Lakeville Convention and Visitors Bureau at 952-469-2020 or go to visitlakeville.org. Lakeville, we mean business.
I've been meaning to give you these for many years. I think they're perfect.
Maya?
Oh, I love your earring. Why didn't you try these?
It isn't just about vision. It's about care. Nobody cares for eyes more than Pearl.
And 10,000 Takes rolls along, and it is Super Bowl week. We're going to talk Super Bowl now with a guy who knows more about the NFL than you and I will ever know, Warren Moon. Warren, I'm not sure if you had these two teams in the Super Bowl, but a lot of people did. They probably were the best two teams from wire to wire this year. Your thoughts on the two that made it, the Chiefs and the Niners?
Well, these are the two that I thought would make it as well. I thought, if anything, Philadelphia would be playing San Francisco in San Francisco for the NFC Championship, but it didn't turn out that way. Philadelphia kind of fell off the map at the end of the season. And then Kansas City, they didn't get there the way I thought they would this year. They were pretty much a up and down team all season long, especially offensively. But their defense has really stepped up, and they have a number 2 defense in the league to go along with the best quarterback in the league. So he just kind of won games for them when they needed to win games. And once they got into the playoffs, it seemed like they were able to flip a switch and just become, the Chiefs that we know them to become. So They both got here different ways, but they're both here.
Warren, where do you land on Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant out of Iowa State? Some folks, Cam Newton among them, saying, well, he's the 10th best player on the team. He's a game manager. Others are saying Richard Sherman, no, he's a rising star. He's the real deal. What are your takes on Brock Purdy?
Well, the proof is in the pudding. I mean, this kid, you look at his stats over the course of this year, they're as good or better than most every quarterback in the league. Everybody said he couldn't win the game coming from behind. He had to be ahead in the football game. Well, in 2 playoff games, he's brought his team back from behind, and he's done a lot of it himself with his legs and with his arm. So I don't know what people are waiting for to happen with him. I guess he has to win a Super Bowl and be the MVP before they understand that he's a good enough player to play in this league. But the last time I checked, if you can take your team to the Super Bowl, you're a pretty good quarterback. And if you can win it, that puts you in another stratosphere. So I wish people would get off of him just because he was a 7th-round pick and the last pick in the draft. The quarterback position is not a complete science as far as how you grade these guys. Look at Trey Lance. I mean, Trey Lance was the 3rd pick in the draft, and he hasn't been able to even get on the field. And I can go on and on about guys who were drafted high. Mitchell Trubisky, all types of guys that didn't live up to where they were drafted. But then you look at Tom Brady, a 6th-round draft pick, and he wins 7 Super Bowls. So you can't go by where a guy was drafted on how well he's going to do in the National Football League. It's how he develops, it's how much he moves, and it's what environment he's put into. And there's no question Purdy has been put in a good environment, but he still has to go out there and make those throws. Nobody's throwing the football for him. Nobody's checking off at the line of scrimmage when he sees to check off. Nobody's scrambling for him when he scrambles and makes those decisions. So there's a lot that goes into quarterbacking than just having good talent around you.
And speaking of quarterbacks in another stratosphere, Patrick Mahomes obviously there at this point. But it's the Chiefs' defense, I thought, that really elevated them to the next level towards the end of the season. Your thought on that Chiefs' defense and how they've played of late going into this Super Bowl?
Yeah, they've played unbelievably good, probably from the first quarter of the season all the way through. I mean, they have a lot of speed on this defense. They're very young. They have a young secondary. A lot of that started last year when they went to the Super Bowl with a couple of rookie corners out there or rookie guys in the secondary, and they've just gotten better because of the experience that they have. So it doesn't surprise me that they're playing this well on defense with all the different team speed that they've drafted over the last couple of years. You add Chris Jones to the mix, who's going to always be a challenge, and he's going to always command a double team. He's going to allow some of those other guys up front to make plays. This is a very, very good defensive team, and they needed that this year because their offense really struggled with their wide receivers dropping all the balls that they dropped. But like I said, when you have a Patrick Mahomes, and if the game is close, he'll find some way somehow to win it for you.
If Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs win another Super Bowl, that would be 3 rings for Patrick. Look, he's already going to the Hall of Fame, Warren. We know that. But then he's getting into that rare area, Terry Bradshaw, the guy you mentioned, Tom Brady. I mean, it's tough to get 1 ring, let alone 3. So we're talking about legacy stuff, aren't we?
We really are, especially him doing it in this short a period of time. Tom went a decade without winning a Super Bowl. A lot of people forget that, and then he won a bunch at the end. So I don't see Patrick playing as long as Tom Brady did. Tom played 23 years, so he had a chance to win a lot of Super Bowls, because he was still playing at a very good, a good quality of play at an older age. But I think Patrick has a chance to get up there in that 4 or 5 Super Bowls, in his first 10 years, and that would be an amazing accomplishment. Joe Montana, he has 4 and no losses and no interceptions in his, so he's up there as one of the best ever. And so, if Patrick can get up there in that 4 and 5 range in his first 10 years, I tell you what, he's going to be up there with the top 3 that ever play the game at that position.
All right, I want to bring the quarterback discussion home here to Minnesota. Kirk Cousins, it's the big question that's floating over this franchise. Sounds like He's going to want $45 million a year for a 2-year deal. Do you see him back in a Vikings uniform? And better yet, should the Vikings put that much out there, considering all the other needs that they do have?
Well, there's no question Kirk has done a great job for the Vikings organization. He's been very productive since he's been there. But coming off of this injury, I would wait and see exactly how he comes off this injury physically before I make that type of commitment into a guy coming off of a torn Achilles. That's what he had, right? A torn Achilles.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. When you get up there in age, somewhere around that, 35 and up age, trying to come off of one of those, it can be very difficult. So I would definitely take a look at how he is physically and make sure. Well, I guess you can't really make sure, but you can be pretty confident that he's going to be healed completely. And maybe you put some injury guarantees inside the contract, or some injury protection for the Minnesota Vikings, just in case something happens with that Achilles, that he can't come back from it. But there's no question he's a good player, but you just don't know coming off of this type of injury. And I'm sure the Jets are going to have that same question with Aaron Rodgers at 39-40 with the same injury. So both of those organizations are going to have some decisions to make on those two guys.
And Warren, regardless of what the Vikings do with Kirk Cousins, or if they bring in another veteran to be a placeholder, with that 11th pick in round 1, do you think, and I know you love Michael Penix, you tipped us off on him early in the year, he might be there, didn't have a good game against Michigan, but I don't think that should be held against him. Would that be a good fit for Minnesota? Get a guy like Penix and then groom him for a couple of years. Don't just throw him to the fire.
Right. No, I think so. I think that would be a good pick, and I think he will be there at 11. The way they have him projected right now, he's almost at the end of the first round. Some have him into the second round, and I really don't understand that. I think a lot of it has to do with his injury history. He had a lot of injuries when he was at the University of Indiana. Before he came to the University of Washington, but he's been very healthy the last 2 years. He did get banged up in that national championship game, and he bruised his ribs, and I think that affected his play in that game. But he really had a good Senior Bowl as far as the practices were concerned. I know he didn't play in the game, and I don't know what the reason was for that. But this guy can play. He can throw it with anybody. He's very smart. He's very mature. He's a 6-year guy, so it's not like he's a junior coming out early. He's a guy that had extra years, and so he's got that experience factor, played a lot of college football games, and he had a lot of success.
How hard is it for a young guy to step into the NFL right away?
Well, I mean, we've seen it. We've seen it with Bryce Young in Carolina. He had a tough year this first year as number 1 overall pick. But usually when you're a number 1 overall pick, you go to a pretty bad team. And his team is not very talented, and he took a beating because of it. Not a lot of stars on that team as well. But if you're a guy like, with C.J. Stroud, he went to the Texans, who had some talent at the receiver spot, and he showed well. So a lot of it has to do with what you're asked to do, and then who you have around you, what your supporting cast is. And I think that has a lot to do with a young quarterback having success in this league early.
Warren, time is ticking. I just need a one-word answer. Air Jordan Love, is he the real deal in Green Bay?
He's the real deal.
All right. Thanks, Warren. You got Chiefs or Niners in this one?
I got the Chiefs. I played for the Chiefs at the end of my career. I've known Patrick since before he was drafted, and I have complete faith in them.
All right. Warren Booth says the
Chiefs Kingdom.
All right. Thanks, Warren. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Good talking to you. Enjoy the game.
Thank you. He is Warren Moon, Hall of Famer, former Minnesota Viking, right here on 10,000 Takes. We're back after this.
I've been meaning to give you these for many years. I think they're perfect.
Maya?
Oh, I love your earring. Why didn't you try these?
It isn't just about vision, it's about care. Nobody cares for eyes more than Pearl.
True love stories never have endings. However, they do have beginnings. Congratulations on your engagement. Begin planning your special wedding day at weddingsoflakeville.com, where you'll discover over a dozen reception venues accommodating up to 600 guests. Go to weddingsoflakeville.com and choose settings that are intimate, serene, outdoors, historical, state-of-the-art, traditional, and even country club style. Feel confident. Weddingsoflakeville.com provides recommendations from businesses we know and trust.
Welcome back. Well, if you're a basketball fan in Minnesota, this may be your year. We know the Timberwolves are on top of the Western Conference, or have been on top of the Western Conference for much of the season. And your Gopher men's basketball team seems to have turned a corner. I don't know if they've turned the corner, but they're better for sure. After 2 years under Ben Johnson, where they finished last in the Big Ten, I think they have crawled out of that and have become relevant now.
Well, it's the kind of progress they had to show for Ben in year 3, and they're showing it. And he's got some building blocks. I think his system, too, is in place. You know, brand new coach, young guy, came off the bench at Xavier. So, you know, he was learning the game, too, right? I mean, It takes a while. This stuff just doesn't happen overnight. And, you know, it has been a good run for the Timberwolves and the Gopher men so far. I guess you would call it a winter wonderland, right? I mean, we don't have any snow, but it's good for basketball because these teams have won some games. But the Gophers have to keep it going. They're on what I would call the bubble, the fringe of possibly getting into the NCAA tournament. Now, they've got a lot of games left. Yeah. But they put themselves in a position in a Big Ten that's not a powerhouse conference.
True.
At the start of this week, only 3 teams ranked. And they're down, you know, in that next group with the Michigan States and the Northwesterns and the Nebraskas. So they're in those slots. So if they can stay there, maybe move up a rung or two, you never know. And really, it's all about playing in March in the NCAA tournament. And how excited would the Twin Cities be if the Gophers could punch a tournament ticket again? I know it's a little early to say that, but you got to think that way. That has to be the goal.
Yeah, the goal has to be an NCAA team. And whether they make it to the tournament or not, as you said, it's way too early to make that proclamation. But the guys in that locker room have to believe that that's what the goal is, to get to the NCAA tournament and see what happens after that.
Well, they don't have that signature win yet.
Right.
They could have gotten it against Wisconsin, one of those ranked teams. They lost in the final seconds at the barn. It'd be nice if Minnesota could get one of those, you know, monumental victories, right? That cements your resume when the folks, you know, pick the tournament teams. But all they can do is just keep beating the teams they should and find a way to spring an upset or two.
All right. This time next week, when this television show is on the air, pitchers and catchers will have reported in Fort Myers for the Minnesota Twins. And one of the players is Carlos Santana. No, not the singer. Yeah. Carlos Santana, the former player who played for Cleveland and bounced around Kansas City and Pittsburgh and then Milwaukee last year even for a while. So they've added a piece. They're slowly adding pieces, the Twins are.
Yeah, and he is going to be what the Twins hope will be their typical bargain basement edition.
Exactly.
They pick up a guy, I don't want to say the scrap heap, but, you know, he's not a tier 1 or tier 2 guy as far as the market goes. But he could come in here and be somebody who produces at first base, at DH, and they need some pop, right?
Yeah, he can do that.
Yeah.
And he draws a lot of walks, too. And I'm sure that Derek Falvey and his time in Cleveland, that's had a lot to do with them picking up Carlos Santana because he was instrumental in their World Series run back in 2016.
You've got to change your evil ways. Is that one of the Santana songs?
Yeah, I'm going to have to change my evil ways. I'm going to have to cheer for Carlos as a twin as opposed to wearing a Cleveland Indians uniform.
Yeah, wow. Yeah. You're going to go against the Guardians.
Yeah.
That's blasphemy for you.
Wow. All right, we're back with Takes of the Day after this. Stay with us.
In Lakeville, Minnesota, dozens of meeting venues are ready to host your next corporate event, banquet, and holiday party. Lakeville has unique conference facilities, a variety of hotels, an abundance of team-building options, and dining that are sure to impress. For suggestions that suit your needs, please call the Lakeville Convention and Visitors Bureau at 952-469-2020 or go to visitlakeville.org. Lakeville, we mean business.
I've been meaning to give you these for many years. I think they're perfect.
earring. Why didn't you try these?
It isn't just about vision, it's about care. Nobody cares for eyes more than Pearl.
10K takes on television as we wrap up yet another episode. But before we say sayonara, it's time for takes of the day. We're going to find out what your mood is. Are you a demanding diva, sarcastic Sam, giddy guardian? What is it?
Well, you had to go there with the Guardian.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
year number 3.
Ironically,
the Flying Gs.
Yeah, well, the Flying G has a new home. It's on their spring training camp. Yes, spring training just around the corner. And what has Major League Baseball done? They've got another idea on how to spend your money. That's right. A spring training cap.
Oh, boy.
That's right. New logos, new looks. And your Minnesota Twins have an interesting look.
Yeah, the flag has dropped at the NASCAR track.
What the world is that? I guess it's better than the M with the little star on top of it.
Ooh, you had to go there.
Well,
I still have that cap, you know.
Well, you better. I know you paid a hefty sum for it. It's better than the stupid Flying G for Cleveland. But I don't know. It doesn't look like much to me. I don't think I'm going to be purchasing one of those, whether in person in Fort Myers or online anytime soon. But leave it to Major League Baseball to give you more reasons to spend your money. You know, they have they've got the city edition uniforms. They have the home whites and the home grays and the visiting ones and the dark uniforms and the softball look uniforms. I mean, here we go again. Spring training camps with goofy looking logos.
Well, let's see what that mood meter says. Right there in the middle. Sarcastic Sam. So he's basically throwing shade on all these new spring training caps. I'll say this. I liked Philadelphia's look, the Liberty Bell.
Yeah,
that one's cool.
That was a good one.
And, you know, this new women's hockey league, the PWHL, you can mock and ridicule MLB all you want, but how about a league that is starting up with 6 teams and they still don't have names?
No team.
We're almost into mid-February. They are missing a marketing opportunity. Maybe they should talk to MLB.
Yeah. Good idea.
Yeah. All right. Well, as we all know, it's Super Bowl week. You'd have to be living on Mars to not be aware of that.
Oh, boy.
So you've probably heard more than you want to know about this matchup. But here's a Super Bowl nugget for you, just in case you haven't been told this story. So the head coach for San Francisco's Kyle Shanahan, his star running back is Christian McCaffrey. Now, Kyle's father is Mike Shanahan. Won a couple Super Bowls with Denver, and he was an assistant coach, very good, on a San Francisco team that won the 49ers last Super Bowl. That's Super Bowl 29. So on that team was Ed McCaffrey, a wideout, on the 49ers team and those Broncos teams. So you have the father, Mike. The kid is Kyle, the coach. You have the father, Ed, the receiver, and you have the kid, the running back, Christian. So can Kyle and Christian duplicate what Mike and Ed did back in the day, win those Super Bowls? So that'll be one little angle we'll follow on Super Bowl Sunday. Another thing about Mike Shanahan.
Yes.
In 1979, it was a one and done, but he was the offensive coordinator for the Minnesota Golden Gophers. Ooh. And that was a trampoline to get him to Florida, which then got him into the NFL. And I'm sure if you asked him about his days in Dinkytown, it's probably rather foggy.
Yeah. Well, probably Ricky Foggy was the quarterback.
That's close. Yeah, I think he just missed Ricky Foggy.
Yeah, that'd be Joe Salem's.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So
they should have hung on to him. They should have figured a way out to hang on to that.
Could you imagine that? No. Mike Shanahan?
Coaching the Gophers instead of your guy, PJ.
All right, well, on that note, we got to go. Let's FedEx out those thank yous. One to Alex Yambrick, David Weld, Paul Langfellow, Rocky, Warren Moon. For Wally, I'm Eric saying so long. This is 10K Takes, your sports ticket. Go get a spring training cap.
Oh, no.
Rush down to Florida, Arizona. They're on sale now.
Oh, my goodness. You got a carnival burger.
Yeah.